behalf of OSI, I thank you for joining us to learn about Heroku Connect that's been available on the Salesforce platform for a little over 1 year now. This is the third installment of OSI's ongoing Salesforce educational series, and we will have another installment to come. Everybody who attends this webinar will receive an email from our marketing department notifying them of when the next one will be. So my name is Doug Tuff, and I'm a solutions manager with OSI in the Pacific Northwest. I'll be hosting our webcast today with Varun Grover, our subject matter expert and one of our Salesforce technical leads. Varun has over 10 years of experience working and implementing enterprise solutions for customers in many industries. He specializes in providing numerous integrations with the Salesforce platform. Varun, do you want to move that? So let's talk about our agenda today. Pull that up. Perfect. So today's webcast is going to be a little bit of an interactive discussion. I'll be occasionally asking Varun a few questions during his portion of the presentation, and we'll be covering a handful of items that we've listed out here, specifically what is the Force.com and an overview of Heroku and how are they connected together. As we mentioned, it's been available for the past year, so Varun's going to cover some of the nuances of that. And what is Heroku Connect, which is a little bit different from Heroku, and why you should care, why use it. Then we're going to jump into how Heroku Connects work. Varun's going to dive into some specifics and actually show you a hands-on example. And he's going to, during that example, he's going to kind of give you a typical scenario or an example scenario of ways we see it used and some best practices. And finally, we'll wrap up and go through some question and answers and just kind of give us an overview, give everyone an overview of OSI. So if you have any questions, please type them into our chat on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and we'll be answering those questions at the end of the webinar. So once again, if you have any questions, type them into the chat, and we will have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar that Varun will be answering those questions. And if we don't get to them, we'll follow up with you after the fact. So now I'm going to pass our webinar over to our subject matter expert, Varun. And Varun, are you there?
Hey, thanks, Doug. Good morning, everyone. I am Varun Grover, a technical lead with OSI Consulting. And as Doug mentioned, I have experience around integration, mainly with Salesforce. So let's move on with today. So what's Heroku and why we use Heroku with Force.com, or why we have Heroku Connect with Force.com. I'll just cover Force.com a bit so that we have a little background. So we use Force.com to build apps that extend business processes. We use it to create apps and components with and without code with just a few clicks. And we use it to integrate with any data source on Force.com platform. It's a platform as a service which provides you database, integrations, user interface, and everything. And Salesforce, as you all know, is built on top of Force.com platform. So what's Heroku? Okay. Heroku is everything you need to build, run, and scale customer apps, or I would say any sort of apps, either a mobile app or a web app. You have majorly three sort of components on Heroku. The major one being the dynos, or the virtual machines that run behind the scenes. It can run any language at any scale that you guys want. And most important is the Heroku platform is built on top of AWS. So you don't need to care about the actually maintaining the infrastructure that's behind the scenes. It's just that you need to commission dynos and you have a virtual machine ready for you guys. The next important component on Heroku is the databases, and the most important one is the Postgres. Heroku provides enterprise-grade Postgres, and it provides services such as authorization, authentication, and all those things. And it provides a few add-ons. which are basically elements on Heroku, and Heroku Connect is one such add-on which we'll be using. Postgres itself is an add-on which we'll see when we go through the example scenario. Why we use Heroku? As I mentioned, it can help you to build your customer-facing apps in any language, whether it's Node.js, Ruby, PHP, Scala, Java. It has a direct integration with GitHub and, as I mentioned, enterprise-grade Postgres database as a service. So all the tools you need is basically available on Heroku, which is a platform. And Heroku itself is now owned by Salesforce, so it has a very tight coupling between Salesforce and Heroku platform. So what's Heroku Connect? Basically, Heroku Connect is an add-on, as I mentioned, on top of Heroku. It's used to create a bi-directional data synchronization between Salesforce and Heroku database. The database that we use is Postgres. So any object that we have in Salesforce can have a direct mapping on Heroku in Postgres as a table, and there's a real-time, almost real-time sync bi-directional between Heroku and force.com. So why we should use Heroku Connect? Well, if you have apps that federate data from Salesforce.com and other non-Salesforce.com sources into a single data store, and you want to produce a customer-centric web or mobile experience, then you should consider using Heroku Connect between your force.com and Heroku platform. And if you have apps that use languages frameworks that typically require data to be held in relational database for considerations like performance, scaling, and flexibility, which Postgres provides out of the box, then we should use Heroku Connect between your force.com and Heroku. And most important is the simplicity. It's just basically a configuration that we do. So business users with comprehensive knowledge of Salesforce can use Heroku Connect to configure a sync without any programming skills. And if you have developers with skills that use SQL as a database and on different languages, then you can build apps while maintaining an integration with Salesforce directly using Heroku Connect. So how Heroku Connect works? It was just an overview what we went through. What is Heroku and what is Heroku Connect? Now let's see how Heroku Connect actually works. It's a point and click configuration, as I mentioned. Users basically, when you log into the Heroku platform, what you get is you can create apps and then use add-ons to add Heroku Connect. We use OAuth between Salesforce and Heroku, and we create a connection between Salesforce and Heroku platform. It can be either sandbox or a production instance. Then we actually choose the mapping or the objects that we want to have synced between Salesforce and Heroku Postgres. And then we can also choose what kind of sync we want, whether we want a bi-directional sync or we just want to replicate data from Salesforce to Heroku. It's all dependent on the configuration that we want to have. The data model. As we all know about Salesforce, it stores everything in an object, and that objects get directly synchronized with Postgres tables inside Heroku using Heroku Connect. The schema that we have in Postgres is actually an org in Salesforce, and every object in Salesforce will have a direct table mapping on Heroku Postgres database. And every field that we have in object in Salesforce becomes a column in Postgres database. So how the actual synchronization works? Basically, it works on the last modified date time that we have on every object in Salesforce. And since objects are mapped, there's a default interval of 10 minutes that happens on Heroku Connect. It basically reads everything from Heroku and reads from Salesforce and writes or updates to the Heroku Postgres database. We can always push the data from Postgres to Salesforce as well, and the default interval for that is around 5 minutes. So what if we have multiple orgs or we want to basically sync multiple Salesforce org with single Postgres database. Well, that can be achieved, but we need to have only a single Heroku app that can share the Postgres database with the Heroku Connect instance. So what we'll do is we'll create a Heroku app inside Heroku, then we'll add a new add-on of Postgres, then multiple add-ons of Heroku Connect. So if I have maybe an org A and an org B, so I'll add two different Heroku Connect add-ons, one for org A and one for org B. So this will create a single Postgres database, but with the two different schemas inside Postgres database. So one schema will be for org A and one schema will be for org B. So we can maintain a single database for multiple orgs, and the Heroku Connect automatically syncs depending on the connection that we create and the mappings that we create between Heroku and Salesforce. So let's move on to our example scenario. If you guys have any questions, then we can quickly take that, or I'll move on with the example scenario.
Let's keep moving here, Varun. That'll be perfect.
Okay. So I'm currently logged into my Salesforce org. This is my Salesforce org that I'm currently logged in. I am also logged into my Heroku platform, which I mentioned is a platform as a service. Now, what I'll do is I'll quickly create a new app to show how Heroku Connect works. So first we'll create a new app. The name is optional, so we'll leave that as blank. It created an app for us. We'll go to the resources tab. So the next step that I mentioned is provisioning few add-ons. So Postgres as a database and the Heroku Connect are both add-ons on Heroku platform. So we'll start by adding the Postgres database. So we have added the Postgres database add-on on our Heroku platform, or the Heroku app that we just created. Now we'll add the Heroku Connect add-on. So we'll be using the free edition, both of Postgres as well as Heroku Connect. So we have that add-on available now. I'll just click on that add-on. So this is the setup screen that we have for Heroku Connect. Since I'll be using a single Salesforce org, my dev org, I'll just connect with one Salesforce org and create a single connection. So as you see, the database URL is automatically taken since I have a Postgres already available as an add-on when I created the app. If we didn't have a database, then this Heroku Connect would have asked us to create a new Postgres database as an add-on. So we just did that step earlier. We have to choose the schema name. Since I mentioned we can have multiple schemas available on a single Heroku database, which can point to different Salesforce orgs. So we can achieve that through schemas. So I'll name it my dev org. I'll select I'll keep the environment and API version as default, and I'll click authorize. So when we use any user that is used to sync between Salesforce and Heroku Postgres, we have to make sure that the user has sufficient permissions on Salesforce. So as you see, currently I have no defined mappings with me. I'll just go ahead and create a new mapping. Let's say I'll choose leads. Okay, we have the lead object here. So as you can see, there are two parameters that are listed here: Salesforce to database and database to Salesforce. So the Salesforce to database is required when you want to read from Salesforce and have the data synced on Heroku. If you want to sync it back to Heroku, then you can just click this checkbox and it will sync back. I'll not select this because I'm not currently demonstrating that, but you guys can use this checkbox to have the data back in Salesforce. So there are a few fields that are mapped automatically by Heroku Connect, like created date, the ID, the last modified date, the name. So I'll select the, let's say, state, status, the phone number, last name, and maybe the first name. Yeah, and then I'll click save. So as you can see, it's the Heroku Connect is doing everything behind the scenes. It created a new table in Heroku Postgres with same name as we selected the object. So there will be a table called leads in this schema, and all the rows will be synced. So as we can see, the status is okay, and the number of rows in Salesforce matches the database rows in Heroku Postgres. So we can check this object. It will give you various parameters on the dashboard that we can see whether the sync is working or not, what was the last sync, what was the last poll time, what's the frequency, what's the number of count in Salesforce as well as Heroku Postgres database. Are there any errors or write operations that are failing? So I'll quickly change something on Salesforce side and then let's see if it works. So I'll change my name and I'll click save. So as I mentioned, this takes around, the polling interval is 10 minutes. So last Salesforce was checked around 2:17. That's the time zone I'm in, and it polls every 10 minutes. Sorry. So we have to wait to see the live sync. What we can do is I'll just click poll now. And then let's see if the data has been synced. So as we can see, the new data is available now, and it says synced. We can quickly see that again, how it works. I'll just change the name again. So rather than waiting, I'll just poll the data again. We have to wait for some time, and it also shows the live graphs on these usage that we are consuming, or the errors that are, if there are any errors on Heroku side or the Salesforce side. Okay. So the name has changed again, and it says the last modified time, and the changes have been synced. So this is how you can set up Heroku Connect. This is the manual configuration that we have to do. This is the only configuration that's required on the Heroku Connect side. Obviously, you'll need a user which has an integration level authorization on Salesforce. You don't want to use your admin, but that's the choice that we have. So these are some of the high-level steps that we did to set up Heroku Connect. we logged into Heroku. If you don't have a Heroku account, you can use a Dev Heroku account. It's available for free for usage. Then we created a new app on Heroku, and that we can create around 5 apps on the free dev account. Then we added a new Postgres add-on, and then we added a new Heroku Connect add-on. Then we set up the Salesforce connection using our authorized user and created mappings between Salesforce and Heroku Connect. We mapped the lead object and saw the real-time changes that happened on Salesforce side, and it was synced to Heroku database. Once we share this presentation, there are a few links. The Heroku documentation is available, and there are developer docs for Heroku Connect as well, which you can go through. Doug, back to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Varun. I appreciate that. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up here, a couple of topics that we covered, and then there's quite a few questions coming through, and we'll get into some questions here. But essentially, just to review, quick review, we went over Heroku and theforce.com. And Heroku, remember, you can build, run, and scale apps very quickly and easily. And theforce.com is for building apps within the Salesforce ecosystem. And Varun touched on kind of the nuances between those. We also covered on what Heroku Connect is, essentially a bidirectional data sync, almost real-time and very easy to set up, as Varun just demonstrated here in real time. We didn't pull in tricks here. This is to show you exactly for what it is. We also discussed how it works. Varun walked us through that. And finally, we walked through an example scenario. So Varun, let's move to the next slide here. If you have any interest in taking a closer look at Heroku Connect for your organization, we've dedicated a few resources for 3 2-hour workshops over the next couple of weeks. And if you're interested in this, we're going to be offering these 3 time slots available over the next, I guess, 2 weeks. And we're going to have the team available to do a one-on-one workshop with you and your organization. So that's of no cost. We'll provide you a lot of insight and guidance in that time frame that we've set up. So if you're interested in that, feel free to send us a note in the question and answer section right now, or if you need to talk with your colleagues about it, you can send us an email or give us a call at a later point, and we'll have those emails and numbers distributed after the webinar. So we'd be, once again, happy to discuss your situation and guide you through the process of evaluating your position. So why would you want to work with a company like OSI? OSI is a global professional services firm founded back in 1993. We are a certified Salesforce Silver consulting partner and have completed over 60 Salesforce implementations, along with numerous formal certifications within the Salesforce ecosystem. We're doing fantastic work for the past 23 years, and we have a little over 1,200 professionals globally. We have a number of service groups outside of our Salesforce group that include packaged application implementations for Oracle, PeopleSoft, Hyperion, and others. We also provide infrastructure, cloud services, systems integration, business intelligence, and data analytics. We have a large pool of experience and talent to use for a variety of engagements, as I mentioned. So we're done with our webinar here. We'll be sharing out some follow-up content. This will be a copy of the slide deck here, and we'll also be sending out some information regarding our next webinar within the Salesforce series. I mentioned this is the part 3 in our ongoing educational series in the Salesforce ecosystem. But now I'd like to jump into our question and answer, and we saw a couple come through here. So I want to start, and I think this is our #1 question asker of during our webinar here, Mike. So Mike's got a couple of questions here for you, Varun. So I'm gonna start with one, but he has looks like 2 or 3 in total. So Mike is he's not clear why Salesforce is needed. He's curious why build an application in Heroku and Postgres and skip Salesforce and its limitations, especially the record processing limits. And
yeah.
There's a part 2 to that. Using just Heroku and Postgres combination, one might miss out on the CRM out-of-the-box features with some defined business processes. And that's a great question. So what say you?
So let's take it one by one. The first part of the question, can you just repeat the first part itself?
Yeah, so he's not clear why he needs Salesforce, why build an application in Heroku and Postgres and skip Salesforce and its limitations.
Okay, we'll be using Heroku Connect just to synchronize Salesforce data and between our Heroku database. We are not skipping the Salesforce or the Post.com or the Salesforce CRM. Salesforce will be used when you have, let's say, a dependency on Salesforce and you have all your data, all your business processes running on top of Salesforce, all your workflows, all your email communications, everything is going on Salesforce, but the volume of data is large and you want to create some web applications on top of your data or customer-centric applications on top of your data, then what you do is you synchronize that data between the Salesforce and the Postgres database using Heroku Connect. You get the best of both the worlds. You get all your business processes and your architecture running on Salesforce platform, and at the same time you get all your data available in a Postgres database, which you can use as a normal web application or maybe a mobile application. And what was the second question, Doug? The second part?
Yeah, and he was curious about the record processing limits. If that's something that he might miss out on.
The record processing limit. There are no limits on the, if it's about the synchronization of the records that we are talking about. So there are no limits on the number of records that we can synchronize, but it depends on the Heroku Connect and how they price it. But okay, currently there's no limitations on how many records we can have in sync. If that the question is around the records being synced.
Okay. And then he's coming in asking, I think, a little follow-up to what you were just talking about. How about for Greenfield Work, for example, not currently in Salesforce? Any thoughts on that?
Which one? Which one?
As a follow-up to what you just talked about, you know, why not build an application in Heroku and Postgres? He was curious specifically about any Greenfield Work, not if they don't have anything in Salesforce. I think would this work with other, you know, custom applications or other systems?
Yeah. You use Heroku platform to build custom applications, but what you get with Salesforce or Post.com as a platform are plethora of things. You get authentication out of the box. You get multiple workflows. You get authorization. You get creation of web pages automatically. You get layouts. You get everything that's out of the box. But if you want to create that, replicate that on Heroku, you need to develop that yourself. So when you sync the data between Postgres and Salesforce platform, you get the out-of-the-box functionality that's available with Salesforce.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And he had this was a different question, but I think it's pretty important. What errors does it track? Are there example? Does it provide a kind and type of error? And does it have any auto repair capabilities? So that if there are errors, you know, somebody doesn't have to deal with it over a weekend.
It captures all sorts of errors. If you have some, let's say you have some authentication errors, the user that you used is not able to log in. So first is that error that the Heroku Connect will capture. Second is if there are any sync errors between Postgres and your Salesforce instance, then that will be captured as sync errors. That could be due to a record being modified on Salesforce as well as Heroku simultaneously, and you don't have, because there is a polling interval. So if you do that, there could be errors, but as mentioned in my presentation as well, the last writer of the record wins. So even if that's not the case, then that error will be reported by Heroku Connect.
Okay, wonderful. And okay, so we had a two-part question or two questions from Prasanna. What kind of access is needed on Salesforce for data sync?
Okay, so I mentioned this in the presentation as well. Let's say you want to sync around 5 objects from your Salesforce instance to Heroku Postgres database. So the user that you use to authenticate, as I used my DevOrg authentication, the user that you use for authentication should have sufficient privileges on your Salesforce org. So the permission level that the user has, the integration user that you use, or it could be any user that you want, but it should have the authorization and authentication available and permissions on that particular object that you want to sync to Postgres. On the Postgres side, you don't need any special user setup. It's just the Salesforce authorized user who's used to get the data from Salesforce, and the Heroku Connect automatically writes on your Postgres. So no authentication needed on the Postgres side. It's just the administrator who creates the app. But on the Salesforce side, you need an integration user who has the correct level of permissions on the objects you want to sync.
Okay, okay, wonderful. And are the data transfers, are they encrypted and secure?
Yeah, so since Heroku platform as well as Heroku Connect is owned by Salesforce, all the data that's transferred is encrypted when it gets synced.
Wonderful.
And the Postgres also, it provides encryption at rest. So it depends on the plan that you take of Postgres. If you use enterprise grade Postgres on Heroku, it automatically provides encryption at rest for you. Okay.
And is there any chance that Oracle database can be used instead of Postgres?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. The Heroku Connect only syncs with Postgres. That's how it's built. Oracle as a product is not available on Heroku also. It's the Postgres and Redis database that are available, and Heroku Connect is built on top of Postgres. So unfortunately, we don't have the privilege to configure the database that we use. It's just the Postgres.
Okay, okay, great. And then we had a question from Kanishk. What was Alexa and Tone Analyzer on the Heroku app? Is it an out-of-the-box feature from Heroku?
That was a few of the apps that we created. Alexa and Tone Analyzer. Alexa, as you might have heard, is the product available from Amazon. So currently we are trying to analyze how we can use Heroku Connect with Salesforce to get the data out and do some machine learning things on Heroku platform that can help our user experience on Salesforce.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Tone Analyzer is basically, it uses Heroku Connect itself. It syncs your case management data that's available on Service Cloud to Heroku Postgres, and it can generate reports. So these are some of the use cases that we use internally.
So Varun, are you saying that Amazon's Alexa could be used for interacting and working with through Heroku on Salesforce? Is that right?
We just use Heroku Connect to sync data from Salesforce to Heroku, and then we write our applications on top of Heroku that uses Alexa to analyze that data and make correct actions.
Okay, okay, interesting. And then I had another question here from Shrikant. Would this consume the Salesforce API usage? And I know that's an important topic in terms of keeping costs down.
Yeah, that's a good question, Doug. And fortunately, it doesn't consume any API usage. The Heroku Connect behind the scenes uses bulk and SOAP API, but the number of API calls do not count to your regular API calls that you make in Salesforce, since this is a product built by Salesforce on top of Heroku, the Heroku Connect. So you're safe on the API side.
Okay, great. And I see another pretty important question here. What's the pricing model for all this? Do you have a sense of that, Varun?
Okay. When you log into Heroku platform and try to commission this or provision this add-on, the Heroku Connect, the only option that you'll get is a free edition of Heroku Connect. For paid editions, you need to directly contact Heroku, and unfortunately, they don't reveal the prices on their website. It's not available anywhere. You need to have that conversation with them. But the pricing is dependent on the number of records that you sync. There was a question also, the number of records that we sync. So the pricing is dependent on every 250K rows that we sync from Salesforce to Postgres. So if you have around 1 million rows, the Salesforce Connect will charge you for the batch of 4, or for every 250K rows, basically. The charging itself is not revealed by them. It's upon the relationship with Heroku and the Salesforce.
Okay. And I think we got one more here. Can Heroku Connect be used for archiving purposes?
Yes, that's one of the use cases that you will use Heroku Connect for. Basically, if you have large amounts of data that's available on Salesforce and ultimately your Salesforce org would go slow, or you have some compliance, then what you can do is you can create a sync, unidirectional sync, not bidirectional, and sync the data from Salesforce to Postgres and create some sort of batch processes on Salesforce to delete the old data.
Okay, wonderful. I think we've covered more or less all the questions I've seen coming in here. I really appreciate your time, Varun, and thank you for everyone who attended and joining us. Once again, this was Heroku Connect, an overview, and it was part 3 of our Salesforce educational series, and there will be a part 4 and a part 5 and a part 6. But marketing will be sending out a follow-up email with both some content from today as well as a note as to when the next webinar will be. They're scheduling that right now. So anyways, we thank you again for attending, and if you have any questions, we're going to go through and make sure that we got all the questions answered. We'll be following up with you if we did not get to your question. And once again, if you have any interest in taking advantage of our 2-hour one-on-one workshop, feel free to send us an email or give us a call, and we'll look forward to chatting with you. All right, thank you, everyone. Take care.